And it looks like we're live. Let's make sure. I think we're live. What does it look like here? We do this every week because we never know whether social media is going to screw up. And with that, yep, there we are. We are pretty much focusing tonight on, of course, the live chat in the premium section. Good evening card. And on YouTube and X, Facebook is being glitchy. Something's going on. Yeah, and Instagram too. So it might show up there, but we're not really focusing. Another note, just in case I go off air, while I do have a generator, I don't control the internet. And we've been kind of getting brownouts lately this afternoon. So there's a chance that this could all get knocked off without much notice. So just want to let everyone know that. So there's that. And of course, next week is the final live chat for the year. Then we're going to go on a little vacation, enjoy Christmas. And I'm going to explain tonight why the search for winter storms for Christmas is really a huge folly. Sorry. So, and look, I get it. There are several people out there in social media land who are posting all sorts of weird things, hyping things up. And yeah, if I did that, I probably would make a lot more money if I start hyping things up and create images of major disaster and all this other nonsense. But there's a reason why I'm a CDM number 9. It's because I actually want to provide information you could trust. And also, I'm actually going to be the chair for that board in 2026. So that should be fun. So stay tuned for information on that, kind of a career achievement. So tonight we're going to pretty much first focus on our storm that we are dealing with. And of course, I got the magic pen. I'm not using the horn this week because apparently it's a little too loud. So I'm going to hold off on that a bit until I adjust it. But hey, it's a cool effect. So what do we have? Well, our cold front has moved off the coast here. And now we're starting to get very strong cold air transport taking hold over the region. With that cold air transport, we're starting to get the dry air mixed in, and temperatures are free falling over portions of the interior. We're actually getting snow being recorded in the Poconos. Look at that. Down to, let's see here. Let's pull up this observation here. What do we got? Mount Pocono down to 33 degrees. They are reporting light snow. So the changeover is beginning. The cold air is surging into the region. In fact, around Freehold here, we started off at 61 about 3 hours ago. We're now down to 51 and falling rapidly. We'll probably be falling into the 30s by the time we get to about midnight or so. And this cold air transport has been pretty impressive. And we still have pretty heavy rainfall here setting up throughout the region. And also notice the winds are still pretty strong here, coming in from the west around 10 to 20 miles per hour. So what is evolving here with our storm? Well, first you can see intense heavy precipitation all setting up here. Look at the intensity of this heavy rainfall that has really formed around the region, setting up where we're exceeding already over an inch of rain here in Freehold, in portions of Connecticut and New York. You're well on your way to pushing up close to 2 inches of rain. So you can see we have the lifting in place here. And oh, by the way, there is our snow over the northern interior here. Pretty impressive stuff here setting up. That's going to pop off maybe about 1 to 3 inches of snow. Nothing that is, you know, significant or that's going to stop you from traveling, especially if you're in the higher elevations of the Poconos. That's nothing more than just an easy little snowfall for you. But what is driving this storm? Well, first of all, we have the impressive cold air transport. Okay, so when you see this lined up like this, where you basically can create nice boxes here of the cold air coming in, we create these nice little boxes setting up over your region. That is some pretty strong cold air transport that is lining up. And that's why you're seeing your temperatures crashing here at 850 millibars. And The reason why we're seeing a lot of the strong lifting here is because of the divergence and diffluence that has set up over the region. So a lot of this is driven by the fact that this trough, the polar trough here, has gone into a negative orientation. And what that basically means is that when you have the trough axis like this, what happens to the north of this line here is that your winds get spread out. So this spreading out is kind of pulling the atmosphere apart and causes a lot of rising air here. Now earlier that rising air was occurring right over the New York City metro. You can actually extend this down to about here, okay? So you can see the air rising while the jet stream is spreading. So what's happening is that at the surface here, let me draw another line here, the surface, you're just having a lot of air rising to fill the lack of mass in the upper atmosphere due to this spreading here that's occurring. So that is essentially why we're seeing this heavy rainfall that is taking shape over the region. Let me just erase some of this. There we go. So because of that setup, what you end up with is a lot of good divergence and diffluence aloft and pretty strong frontogenesis as well. And so that is why we're seeing the heavy rainfall that we're seeing. And with the strong winds here at 850 millibars, which you can see right here, those strong winds were mixing down at times, producing strong wind gusts within some of the heavier rainfall. There was some suggestion we could see some embedded thunderstorms in this. The atmosphere wasn't really all that unstable. There were some unconditionally unstable aspects to the atmosphere, especially in the mid levels. But it wasn't something where I saw a lot of support for widespread thunderstorms or anything of that nature. Instead, what I saw was the potential for a lot of mixing down of these strong winds. Now, these winds here are driven by the subtropical jet stream, enhancing the southern and southeast side of this whole trough. Okay, now what we're going to be dealing with, and let me erase this and this. There we go. Still learning this. But anyway, this aspect of our winds here is what's going to continue the windy conditions for tonight on through tomorrow. And the reason why is because the combination of the strong cold air transport that is driving into the region with those strong winds at the mid levels creates a lot of instability and allows for the air to be mixed down towards the surface, which is why we're going to end up with some very windy conditions for tomorrow. Now, is there going to be a threat for some snow showers or anything of that nature? Not really. I mean, there's going to be, again, we talked about the Poconos and Catskills already. For the rest of the region, I see, yeah, you could see some flurries, but nothing that's going to accumulate. It's certainly going to be much colder tomorrow with the strong cold air transport coming in. And we'll take a look at some of the model guidance associated with that. So first of all, 500 millibars, there's our liftings driving its way through. Pretty fast moving system overall. And you can see the rainfall driving through pretty quickly here. This is the latest HRR guidance. Pretty much coming to an end by right about the time, let's say about between 9 and midnight. A lot of this heavy rainfall is going to be coming to an end. So I would say in about a quarter to a half an inch of rain is going to be possible for, let's say, portions of the Delaware River Valley in eastern Pennsylvania, and probably about another half an inch to maybe an inch along the Jersey Shore, around the New York City metro, and over portions of Connecticut and Long Island. After that, again, we'll have to watch out for a few flurries here, but that is pretty much about it. And in terms of snowfall for the Poconos and Catskills, a lot of that is basically occurring now and will be coming to an end by about 10 o'clock tonight. So, again, this is not a major snowstorm event or anything of that nature, but the cold air that's going to be surging in Well, you're certainly going to feel it by tomorrow morning with temperatures down to around freezing on the coast, in the 20s over the interior, and temperatures not rising all that much tomorrow, with most locations stuck in the 30s. There is that concern for the winds, though, coming in from the west around 10 to 20 miles per hour. Strongest again by tomorrow afternoon, ranging anywhere between 10 to 20 miles per hour, and the gusts pushing up to around 25 to possibly touching 40 miles per hour in a few locations. So, if you have any type of, let's say, decorations outside, or in our case around here, any trees near power lines, it could cause some issues here with some wind damage and also the potential for some power outages. So just be prepared for that. Drink my water, make sure that doesn't cause my cough to come back. Now, as far as our pattern overall after the storm leaves, the overall theme that I've said for the second half of December was not a torch, but basically a transient air mass pattern, which basically means we get warm and we get cold, and we get warm and we get cold. Nothing established. And you're not going to establish any winter storm pattern this month because of the MJO. Now, over the next 10 days, we're going to see evolution in the polar vortex. We're going to be watching out for that stratospheric warming setting up over in about 4 days. We'll see whether we can verify that. So far, the models continue to support that idea. And you can see the stretching here that is taking place with our polar vortex. Now, remember, this polar vortex is going to remain relatively strong. We're not looking for this type of weakening that we saw last year. While the QBO is weakening in a westerly phase, it's still a westerly phase. So any idea of the polar vortex basically breaking down and breaking apart into different lobes and basically seeing a reversal of winds is extremely unlikely. But there is a lot of support for a lot of stretching of the polar vortex, and you see a lot of that setting up when your QBO starts to weaken like it is, and clearly is falling below the 15 meter per second threshold. It's now heading towards the 10 meter per second threshold. And once it falls below the 10 meter per second threshold, which I think it will in January and February, that is when we're going to see a lot of high latitude blocking playing coming in. Combine that with what we're seeing here with the tropical forcing. Again, La Nina is La Nada. No matter how many times you try to change the statistics and try to adjust for climate change to make the temperatures look colder, the reality is that our La Nina didn't form. And right now we're seeing the coldest temperatures, and they're not even anywhere near La Nina conditions. You have to be sustained at minus 0.5 degrees Celsius for at least, let's be charitable. Let's say a month, because it hasn't even done it for a week. So we don't really have a La Nina situation in place, but we're driven clearly by the MJO. And for everyone running out and saying like, hey, there could be a winter storm in the east, all you need to know is the MJO is in phases 3, 4, 5, and moving towards 6. These are not favorable phases for winter storms for the mid-Atlantic. You can make a case for northern New England. You can make a case for the eastern Great Lakes. You can make a case for the Ohio River Valley or the upper Midwest, but not the mid-Atlantic. So for some people who might be having you chase the potential for snowfall around Christmas, if you want to see a white Christmas, I suggest putting on a movie because it's not happening around here. So that is my overall theme here. And again, this isn't about chasing, hey, which model guidance, all the model guidance, every single one. Take a look at it. Every single one has us in phase 5 and 6 right now through, let's say charitably through, let's say December 26th. And then after that, as I said in my long range thoughts, after that, then we can see a little bit more support. Then things get more interesting as we move towards January, where we get pushing into a phase 7, possibly a phase 8. And then you combine that with what's going on with the polar vortex. Yeah, I could definitely see some activity definitely taking place. So over the next 15 days, I see a lot of polar air masses coming in and leaving. We'll get some cold shots. This is not a torch pattern in any way, shape, or form. It's an active pattern, but it's not one that supports winter storms. Not in this one. Your ridge axis is way off. Okay, let's go 10 days out. Okay. And your ridge axis, let's see, is coming in here and it lines up almost to where we want in the polar jet stream, right around the Rockies. But look at the trough axis around the subtropical jet stream. This short wave is way too far east. So the reason why that's the case is again because of the MJO. So if your MJO was in phase 7 and 8, then we could be talking about this feature coming in and lining up a little bit better with this trough. But because the MJO is not in play, is not in a favorable phase, this feature is far too progressive, and you end up with a non event. So, again, it's very, very difficult to pull off a winter storm in December to begin with. It's even more difficult when you try to do that with an unfavorable tropical forcing feature like the MJO. And then you combine that with, look, you don't have transient, you don't have sustained cold air, you have transient. It comes in, leaves. So there's another polar shot. Again, no torch pattern, clearly, as I stated, but certainly when we get our cold air masses coming in, they last about 2 or 3 days and then they head out. After this time period, after let's say December 27th, then I think we can lock into sustained cold air and we can start to look for winter storms, which is typical for this region as most of our winter storms occur in January and February. As I always say, any snow you get in December is what I call bonus snowfall. So that is my breakdown of what we have. It's kind of fast tonight. I don't want to like really dive into a lot of phantom storms that are out there when the bottom line is that not really all that impressive of a setup. So I'm going to take your questions and we'll check out to see what we got in social media land. And then we'll go from there. Okay, so let's see here. Card says some much needed rain today. Yep, we are currently over about 1.10 inches of rain here in Freehold, which we seriously need. Just look at the 250 millibar jet streak across most of the Pacific to see why no snowstorms in the northern Mid-Atlantic outside the higher elevations. Yeah, let's take a look at, let me see if I can pull up that jet streak here. We'll zoom out, swing. Yeah, this will do it. This will illustrate it beautifully. So there you go. That's what a card's talking about here. In this setup, what you have is this jet streak just rushing right across the Pacific, and it just prevents any establishment of alignment with the subtropical and polar jet streams when you see this signal here. So this is expected to retract as this upper level low solidifies around the Aleutians and we get a ridge building back here into the Gulf of Alaska and Western Canada. And that's what's going to drive our polar and Arctic air masses right into our region. I'm thinking definitely January that should set up. Card, same old, different year. Well, yeah, I mean, with this jet streak, again, I have to reiterate. Let me go back here. December snowfall is for postcards and Hollywood movies in the northern Mid-Atlantic. If you see a Hollywood movie about Christmas and it's snowing in New York, it truly is fantasy land. You have a less than 10% chance of seeing snow around Christmas time, statistically. So I say this because I consider December on the northern mid Atlantic more of a transition. The rest of the continent, yeah, winter, definitely. Okay. But when it comes to the coastal plain here and the evolution of the weather pattern, the water temperatures are far too warm, and the establishment of the blocking regimes needed for winter storms around here just haven't matured yet. And then you throw in this jet streak here, forget about it. I mean, you're not going to get any type of sustained winter pattern or snowstorm pattern if you got this. If you see this in January and February, kiss your snowfall chances goodbye. But the idea here is that this is going to be breaking down. Do you think it dries out? Ooh, hold on. This is a good question here. Let me. Okay, Snowball says, do you think it dries out before wet pavement can freeze? Seems like temperatures are dropping quickly. It's going to be close, but the support of the strong winds are really going to help to dry out a lot of the pavement out there. In your typical slick spots, I would definitely put some treatment down. I think that's a good idea, especially in your higher elevations. But I think the strong winds are going to help to reduce a lot of the potential for slips and falls and icy conditions. Looking at 70 millibars and 10 millibar winds, even the consolidated vortex is stretched a bit, with it being more oval rather than tight circle we have seen in years past. Yes, I started to see this back in the fall. And I noticed there being a difference between what we see at 10 millibars and what we're seeing at 70 millibars. And at 70 millibars, I'm thinking because, and this is just my theory, I'm thinking that because of the added water vapor that we have in the stratosphere, it's creating a warping of the polar vortex, which is supporting more stretching. But again, because of the nature of the polar vortex, that can only take you so far. So again, that's why in the winter forecast, I put in the idea of a lot of transient polar air mass regimes where they come in, last a week, and then they pull away, and then we get a warm stretch. And the reason why is that kind of mirrors the evolution of a stretched polar vortex. It's stretching, then consolidating, then stretching again. Will the current pattern flip? Will the current pattern build up the snowpack in areas where it needs to be built up to help keep cold air uh, when the pattern turns? Yeah, actually, the snowpack is building up pretty nicely in southern Canada and around the Great Lakes. So that's certainly some good news. While the snowpack is taking a bit of a beating in the Poconos and Catskills, we're doing much better over the interior. 0ZHRR has some snow showers on. Let's check that out. Let me load it up. Let's see what we got here. We'll go, there it is. Let me refresh it and pull it up. Okay, so we'll walk through this together and see what it has here, because I haven't seen this data yet. So there's our rain exiting. Yep, makes a lot of sense. Let's see here. So we're dry overnight, strong winds building. Okay, so we got some of these features here. There's our snow showers. There's our lake effect snow. I mean, there's a few flurries here and there. Nothing that's impressive. If anything, you know who's really going to get hit hard is going to be the Tug Hill. That is going to get whacked. Let's see here. Erie, location south of Buffalo. South of Syracuse could get some good snow out of this. This takes me back here. Going up towards Tug Hill, all that stuff. Fun times. But yeah, I mean, for our neck of the woods, not seeing a lot of snowfall or snow showers or anything of that nature. But in eastern Pennsylvania, which is where you would expect it, probably some good snow showers here and there. Let's see if we got anything interesting on YouTube here. Let's see. Okay, would the presence of the seasonal conditions with an unfavorable MJO suggest in that in more favorable phase we could see some snow and cold risk? Well, we certainly already have the cold risk at play here. Let me just back here. Okay, so we've already seen the cold air risk at play, and that's pretty much driven by what's going on with the polar vortex. The MJO phases, I do expect a shift towards a sustained 7, 8, and 1. And if that happens, then January and February around here are going to be very, very interesting with possibly a lot of Miller B type storms. I know it doesn't make Susan happy, but it is what it is. Now, with that, that doesn't mean you're going to get snow in your backyard because I see this pattern as being a lot of mixed mess. Snow, sleet, rain, back to snow, over the sleet, all that stuff. It's going to be a bit of a pain in the neck to forecast for. Let's see here. Over the last 5 years, I feel like it's about as hard to get snow over here in Ocean County as in northern Florida. Well, it depends where you are in Ocean County. If you are on the coast, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the northern mid Atlantic snowfall is a fickle beast because there is no average year, there's extremes. It's all or nothing. You either get these blockbuster winter storms that drop 12 to 20 inches, or you're struggling to get 2 inches from a clipper some years. So there is no sustained uh, average winter. We have an average, but that average is made up of a lot of extremes back and forth. So yeah, we're in a rough phase right now. Let's see here. What else do we got here for questions? Let's see. Da, da, da. So we when we when we do get an extended cold shot next time, then are we going to get storms? I mean, it's possible. I don't know yet. It just depends on the tropical forcing how that lines up. Uh, I don't believe snow for Ocean County at all. Any streamers saying well north of us, wind direction also wrong for us. Yeah, I mean, you might see a flurry, maybe. I doubt it though. If you're looking for snow showers, you probably want to head up towards the Poconos and Catskills. The highest snowfall years in our region typically have at least some snow in December. Yeah, we did have some snow in December, early December. Not a lot, but a dusting. But Miller B usually bad for coastal plain. No, that's not exactly true. A lot of our most impressive storms were Miller B storms. Miller B storms, and let's see, I'll use this map as an example, are storms where you get redevelopment off the mid Atlantic coast. Now, if you're right on the coast here, yeah, they can be a real pain in the neck. They can produce a lot of mixed precipitation, sometimes it change over to rain, but they also can produce some very, very impressive snowfalls for the coastal plain if they line up just right. Miller A storms also have the same issue. The only difference between Miller B and Miller A is the transfer process. With a Miller A, the transfer process is essentially developing already down towards the Gulf Coast, and then the storm lifts northward. In Miller B, you have the polar shortwave diving in, let's say, into the Tennessee River Valley, and then redeveloping and interacting with the shortwave that is already on the coastal plain, let's say around North Carolina, the Delmarva Peninsula, locations like that. So it's not a lock that it can be a bad result for the coastal plain. It's just a very difficult storm to forecast for. The general rule is this: if you get an easterly wind, you're done. It's very difficult to rebound from that because you're transporting an air mass off the Atlantic Ocean that has temperatures in the 40s. So what you have to do is transport colder air that is in the mid to upper 20s, and that source region's typically in northern New England. So what you need is for winds to go from the east to the north northeast, and that can be very difficult to pull off and cool off the boundary layer. So if you're looking for snow, you don't want an easterly wind. Let's see here. Power's out in New Hope, Pennsylvania. Not surprised. These winds are going to get bad. They're going to get strong, and it's going to be a definitely a good threat. Let's see what the latest observations are right now. Let me pull that up here, and we'll zoom in and get some better data here. Okay, so we're getting gusts up to 28 miles per hour, sustained winds 20 miles per hour, 10 to 20 miles per hour is generally the theme. Gusts are definitely already starting to push over the 20, pushing into towards 30. So yeah, I mean it's already starting to amp up here, and we still got some time to go before we get the real true mixing taking place with that cold air transport coming in. Let's see here. Is there a bridge? Okay, so in general, I don't want to make any guarantees about snowfall amounts, but uh, let me share with the climatology for this region. Your best potential for your blockbuster heavy snowfall. I want to make it very clear. I'm not promising that. Okay, but your best potential is January and February. Actually, you have a better chance of getting heavy snowfall in this region in early March than you do in mid December. And all that is tied to your sea surface temperatures being cold enough to support snowfall without causing an immediate changeover just with the northeasterly wind. Easterly wind, forget about it. But northeasterly wind, you could pull it off. But you typically have to wait to the end of December and especially January to have favorable conditions for that. By the way, just water, in case anyone's asking. I always get that question. I almost got pulled over because of that. Yep. Let's see here. Felt like the rain today slightly underperformed. I'm waiting to see the totals here. I was expecting more than an inch here in Freehold, so I would agree with that. Um, but again, there are some. I'm curious to see how it plays out in Connecticut because I really thought that's where it's going to be the apex for your 2.5, maybe 3 inches of rain in Connecticut and in eastern Long Island. So, and there is some very heavy rainfall here. I'll show the smart if I show the radar image. There's some very heavy rainfall here in Connecticut and Long Island. Let's see here. With Miller Bees, the area that often gets skunked on snowfall with them is central Pennsylvania and southeastern Pennsylvania. And I'll tell you how. In central Pennsylvania, the precipitation shield starts to weaken and collapse as the new coastal load takes hold. So this area starts to see weakening, and then you get your new coastal lows taking shape, and it starts to intensify. And what happens is that you get subsidence between the old low and the new low that sets up right about here. So you end up, let's say, with like 6 inches here, 6 inches here, 2 inches here. Because what you basically they're caught in the middle of the energy transfer from the Ohio or Tennessee River Valley to the coastal plain. So southeastern Pennsylvania really does the worst when it comes to Miller bees. If you're in southeastern Pennsylvania to the west of the Philadelphia metro, the storms you want typically are Miller A storms or Clippers. The Miller B storm has got to be the most, I would say, frustrating storm for those who are, let's say, in this part of Pennsylvania, right about here, because You see the snow coming in from central Pennsylvania. It starts to collapse as it reaches you, and you just get some flurries and light snow. And then you see all the heavy snow just to the east of you, and it never reaches you. It just stays just to your east and stays stationary and then lifts into the northeast as the storm pulls away, which I have to imagine has to be incredibly frustrating. It's too bad we can't get a winter storm. I miss storm is trending north, south, east, west. Don't worry, we'll see it. We'll see it. I have very strong belief that we'll at least get a winter storm this winter. Current ocean count, current excuse me, current New Jersey ocean temperatures is 45, which is 2.3 degrees below normal for this time of year. Does this help? Absolutely. And this is why I'm going to get on my soapbox here. This is why the term wasted cold air is a horrible term in December. Because that cold shot that we had in December, yes, it didn't produce a winter storm, but it prepped us, it set us up for the environment to support winter storms. That's why we're below normal in our sea surface temperatures. It enhances the potential for this environment to become more favorable. Without that cold air, you would still have ground temperatures in the 50s rather than the 40s, which can cool down into the 20s pretty easily. And your sea surface temperatures in the mid 40s right now instead would be in the upper 40s. So that makes a difference. It makes a huge difference. And it's why that initial cold blast was so important. Wind advisory is ending 9 and 10 p.m. No wind advisory for tomorrow because, let me pull up the data here. And let's see here. Okay. The wind advisory was really for this jet streak here, where you could easily push 40, 50, 60 mile per hour winds. This setup here, it'll be windy, but we're talking about 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts and not as widespread. The concern with this jet streak here, with all that heavy rainfall that was moving through, is that you'll be able to get sustained winds at 15 to 30 miles per hour on the coastal plain, away from the coast, 10 to 20 miles per hour, and your wind gusts could easily push into the 50 to 60 mile per hour range if you get enough mixing. If not, then the wind advisory fails. Let's see here. Runoff from cold rain also helps lower temperatures. Yep, that does help too. Absolutely. Bless you. Do we have any questions from X? All right, no questions from X. We're doing good on the live chat. One thing that is very annoying, it's funny, as I gotten older, I know I'm not old, but I've gotten older, 45, there are certain things that you learn to deal with. One, hurting yourself just waking up. I I don't know. The other thing they haven't told you, the other thing they haven't told you is that somehow you start choking on your own saliva for no apparent reason. That's a new one. And then for me, I start to feel aches and pains when we start to get more of these storms, which is very weird. Of course, Susan, you get headaches. Yeah. So she's like my little barometer. Yeah. I'm like, hey, how you feeling? Oh, I got a headache. I'm like, good, the storm's on the way. So she's kind of like verifies for me. But it's funny. I got like a pain. My back is hurting me now. I don't know why. I love it. Well, it helps. I mean, we work. It certainly helps. It gives me a good idea I'm on the right track. I love you too. Let's see here. Do we have any more questions here from the live chat? Now, I get it. Normally, we'll go all the way till 9 p.m. But here's the good news: with the lack of potential winter storms setting up here, this is very, very good for the holiday season. I get it. Everyone wants to see snowfall and this and that. But let's be honest here. Having a major winter storm around the holidays is a mess for everybody because everyone wants to see their family. I know I actually had a couple of snowplow guys reach out to me saying, "Hey, do you think it's not going to snow in mid to late December?" And I'm like, yeah, you guys are usually asking me about, hey, when are we going to see multiple winter storms? And usually the answer around this time of year is like, we want to be with our families. So again, I'm not seeing anything. And here, I'll pull up some of the model guides here. I'm not seeing anything that stands out to me. This right here, this cut up towards the Great Lakes, is typical of a phase 5-6 in mid-December. So it looks like it's going to be pretty quiet up through the holidays here. Certainly the potential for some more lake effect snow. And it's not going to be torch or anything. It's not going to be in the 50s or 60s. We're looking at mostly 30s and 40s around the region. But I don't see anything crazy, at all. Let's see here. Tell you, I've been going to the gym like crazy, and my whole body is aching tonight. Yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. Some powerlifting. I'm kind of feeling it today. That is for sure. Let's see here. So, with that for tonight, I think we pretty much covered everything that we need to cover for this evening with this storm. Rain is moving through. The worst of the event is pretty much coming to an end. Connecticut is going to get some pretty good heavy rainfall out of this. Yeah, a little bit below what I thought we would be. I thought we'd definitely be closer to 2 inches than 1 inch. Still falls within the forecast range. And we're seeing this snow starting to take hold in the Poconos and Catskills, picking up maybe an inch or two. So we have to wait to the MJOs in phase 7 and 8. And when we get to that point, that is when we will start to really talk about the potential for winter storms. In the meantime, I'm going to call it for tonight. I'm going to take it offline for tonight. I think we covered pretty much everything we wanted to cover, and I think that's pretty good. So, as always, I will see you next week at 8 o'clock for the final live chat for 2024, and then we're on vacation. So, as always, stay safe out there.